today we are concentrating on the operation of a voluntary organization that has very close links with Africa. It was set up specially to send out young people between school and university to provide help wherever it may be needed around the world.
Project takes school leavers because they're adaptable, adventurous and still prepared to learn. We hope that working with Project will give you a chance to widen your knowledge of the world while at the same time being of genuine help to other people. Now, what we would like to know from you is what particular experience and skills you feel you could bring to being a volunteer overseas.
I was an organiser for Birmingham Young Volunteers, helping with community work. And I'm interested in outdoor activities. And recently,
Project Trust invites suitable applicants to a selection board which assesses the potential of each prospective volunteer.
This is a week's course on the island of Cowes, which is on the west coast of Scotland. Up there, you'll be working in a group of young people under very different conditions that you're used to.
Right, are you for the Project Trust? Yes. Good. Welcome to Col. You have a good journey. Well, not too bad, thanks.
A bit cold.
Right, get your kit into the back of the Land Rover. We'll down to the castle, which is our headquarters.
Nicholas Maclean-Bristol is in charge of the carefully planned selection course on this remote Scottish island. This ancient castle is their base, and it immediately involves them in a practical world very different from the academic background.
Steve! Steve! Yeah? Have you got that cement chair? Sorry. Well, get a move on.
It's very simple.
They've obviously got to be prepared to cope with a variety of roles under tough conditions.
You want to have a try?
The important lesson is that whatever you have to face, you should always try to remain enthusiastic.
It just doesn't work for me.
is this going on all right, Mr. Fleck?
Put it on a bit thicker.
And it's not just work that's involved. Getting on with the local people is equally important.
Nigel?
Yes?
Tea's ready.
Right, I'll be down in a minute.
Okay.
Never go back.
Working with people is the only way to really get to know them, and the islanders' reactions to the volunteers are a guide for Nick Bristol and his wife during this intensive 7-day selection process.
Mary was asked to teach in a maths class. She was told the children weren't terribly bright, but she found in fact they didn't understand English at all well. This is a problem any one of you may have to solve. How would you tackle it?
I would have thought that Mary could have used more visual aids to overcome the speech barrier between the two different nationalities.
But then you could always give the children extra English classes in the evenings.
Now look, you've got 2 more months before you leave school. Use those 2 months to study your own teachers. You know as well, better than anybody who's a successful teacher, who's a failure. Study why. Some are good and some are not so good. And
if they pass the selection course, 9 months of experience in another country lies ahead of these young volunteers. But what impact will that experience leave upon their lives once they have settled back into their chosen careers in Britain? A year ago, Michelle Mumford was at a secondary school near Makeni in the heart of Sierra Leone. Today, she's at a children's playground built underneath one of London's busiest motorways.
That was super to teach because they're so naturally creative. It means we could make things like papier-mâché tribal masks.
That must have been quite an experience. But what were you able to give in exchange?
Well, I think I was able to receive more than I could give.
It's 3 years since Mark Barnes was teaching at the High Selassie School for the Blind just outside Addis Ababa. Whilst you were out there, what did you teach?
Various subjects, perhaps most notably metalwork, which I had to learn myself before going out there. Also took gymnastics and sports with the blind children, which was highly alarming for an outsider to watch, but which in fact the blind children really enjoyed.
You feel you did get to know the people?
I still get letters in Braille from some of the blind students, and I do feel that I now have a warmth and an understanding for Africa that I wouldn't have had if I was just a tourist. I feel that for a time, at least, I was actually part of the community rather than just a spectator, and that I think is the only way you can get to know people.
I came here when I was ADC in Glasgow in the late 50s. I'd always intended to come here. And I came here and saw it, and cut a long story short, bought the castle from Kenneth Stewart, whose family bought it from the Macleans of Cole. Then having bought it, I couldn't know what the hell do I do with it. What happened was I was in Aden with my battalion in the early 60s, and I suddenly saw the motorcade went past, and there was the Prince Alexander Desta with my form at Wellington. And I rang him up, and I stayed in Ethiopia, and he said, leave the army, help me run this country, because you seem to fall in love with that. And I said, I won't. My blinding light on the road to Damascus, because my future's in the Hebrides. But I'll send you first-rate young people in Britain. You make them fall in love with Ethiopia. And that's how the project happened.
It's too inconceivable at the age of 18 to imagine the rest of your life. I married a man I thought was terribly old because he was 10 years older than me. I had absolutely no idea that this would ever come off. It was just a dream.
The amount of people involved, you know, says, and I founded it and I ran the thing, well I did, but I could not have done it without an enormous number of people.
Nick took it for 25 years as a benign dictator. What he said went, and he paid scant regard to all the political considerations and niceties and the pink and fluffiness we all have to think about nowadays. And I came along with a completely different attitude. I spent a lot more time doing paperwork and bureaucracy than Nick ever did. I envy him in some ways, but then I like to feel that the organisation is very in the 21st century. It's a good, well set up, well run organisation, and it knows where it's going, it's focused.
People can travel, you have to travel here from all over the UK. They come, they cross the sea, it simulates what happens when they go overseas. And we have the whole island of the people working, feeding in information about them, because it's a very intense community. And we're part of it, particularly Lavinia. You know, she runs all sorts of things, or takes part, she plays in arcaded bands, you'll see tonight. You know, she's the church organist. You know, she's very much involved in things. I insisted that when the first volunteers first came here, they lived with local families, or at least one member was living there, was speaking Gaelic.
At the age of 17 or 18, a magical place. And it stays with them, the memories of coal, the remembrance of it all, the famous lazy beds they all had to dig. I mean, that does stay with them. It's a major asset for Project Trust, and it can be a major snag. At the beginning it was quite a snag because of the distance communications, all the problems. But now, oh, you're the one in the Hebrides. It gives it a cachet that the other ones don't have. It's unique in that respect.
Yolanda sikiliza, Yolanda sikiliza, Mama Sengo anaimba, furagani kwangu leo.
I have obviously many favourite moments over the years, but a quite early one was something which I was very touched by. There was a young man, he went to a British public school, he was bound for the city, making lots of money. He was a really nice boy, he's quite young, and I felt very strongly that he should have the chance in his life to do something for somebody else. He was obviously going to be a banker for the rest of his life, that's where he was going. And we sent him out to a project in Africa, to a hospital. There'd been a polio outbreak. The orthopaedic expert said, there are 12, 14 children here in the hospital. They can't walk, they're crippled, that's going to be their life. I'm far too busy to be able to give them the right sort of spinal supports and leg braces and all the rest of it. I can't do that. So here, this boy was faced with a hospital ward of little children who were all just sitting on their beds, and that's all they could do, or else they were going to drag themselves in the dust outside. And he said, no, that's not good enough. And he went to the local timber yard and he got some bits of old timber and he got some bits of old vinyl, he got a few screws.